In this video, we dive into the movie Spartacus, House of Ashur. We will discuss the storyline, summarize the plot, and explore the cast and character. Additionally, we will cover the movie's production details and box office performance. Finally, we will provide reviews and share personal reactions. So let's get started. 15 years after the debut of Starz hit drama, Spartacus Blood and Sand, creator Stamens as DeKnight is returning to the ancient Roman Republic to rewrite history with his sequel series, Spartacus House of Ashur. In House of Ashur, the former gladiator gets an alternative ending, one in which the arrogant Syrian lives. Instead of being killed, Ashur takes Spartacus' life and is consequently rewarded for his trickery by the Roman Empire. A spectral tale wrapped in violence and erotism. This new series follows a man desperate to hold into his newfound elite state while embarking on a quest for honor and glory. The 10 episodes first season, critics received 5 for review, opens in a dream sequences instead of meeting his demise. Ashur turns against Spartacus to await the Roman soldier for his effort. He has been given his own gladiator house and the patronage of his former master. Ashur is delighted with his newfound standing, which include a company of his body slave Hera and Messiah, as well as goddess. The doctor is charged for training his gladiator. He is still the laughing stock among the elite, who accuse him of stabbing Spartacus in the back like a coward. There is much to be gained for all under the banner of the house of Ashur. Should it actually extend? Ashur's gladiator, especially the ambitious Targon and goddess, are eager to bask in a notoriety. Riches and freedoms are champion status would bring them. Unfortunately, Ashur's idea to achieve this goal infuriates everyone. When the recent champion is in the arena, Ashur and Chorus hedgehog dogs where the Izard are held, looking for potential new fighter. There Ashur finds himself distracted by a clean woman getting the best of the god, mesmerized by her agility and fearsomeness. Ashur purchases her, renaming her and forcing Chorus. Much to his horror, to train her as a gladiatrix is a role that Achilles is neither mentally nor physically prepared for. Like its predecessor Spartacus, House of Ashur is absolutely bursting with sex and violence. These themes are so embodied in the series that it functions as plot point in their own right. The amount of sex and nudity depicted will undoubtedly leave the most liberal-minded viewer blushing. Inside and outside of the gladiators arena, DeKnight highlight how brutal and violent this world truly is. From slight throat to crushed skull and dismembered soldier, human organ and guts are constantly on display here. Whoever the gruesome act at the end of episode 2, Forsaken is sure to shock the senses. Moreover, while the majority of the action and tender on street fighting and the arena, Spartacus' House of Ashur also peaked black the trickery woven into the Arab politics. Ashur is presently driving everyone standing in Cupia, is precious and likely to change at any moment. Ashur desperately worked to win in favor of Santor's Gabian, despite the Santor's wife clear disdain for him. Yet his efforts are constantly undermined, especially amid the arrival of Julius Caesar and his gracious wife, Cornelia from Rome. Our Spartacus House of Ashur is a dynamic follow-up to the previous chapter, a classic tale of the haves and have-nots in ancient Rome. A classic tale of the haves and have-nots in ancient Rome, where power means everything. DeKnight was is as exciting as ever. By offering Ashur this new life and encoding his story to Achilles, the series brings two very unlikely figures to the forefront, showcasing how the extreme to which they go to preserve their position. It also highlights how viciously their adversaries will fight to ensure the traitor and the gladiator's demise. Lucky Lawless has set her surprises return to the Spartacus franchise in a new clip from his upcoming sequel series, Spartacus House of Ashur. The upcoming Spartacus House of Ashur tells a reimagined version of Ashur's fate from the original series. This involves him becoming in league with the Cassius, leading to a host of new challenges he needs to face. Northern have released a clip from Spartacus House of Ashur, which sees Lawless return as in the spin-off show. The clip reveals her confronting Ashur in the underworld following his death in Spartacus Season 2. While holding her baby, she tells Ashur she is setting him on a new life path, confirming she is the catalyst for the spin-off. Based on the clip, it appears the gods have found favor in him, so he not killed by Navia at the top of Mount. Lawless return explained in new timeline, while also confirming the show will be following the same Ashur from the original series. It justifies how this spin-off happening while also delivering a major character's return. In addition to the clip, creators Demonas, DeKnight explained the mindset behind having the reason behind the show's resurrection in a new timeline. He called the underworld scene the impetus for the series, while also explained what it was like to work with Lawless again after such a long time. Yes, away in was so lucky as who went over that cliff with a baby that she stole from Latia. We can start in the underworld even sure has just that, and they aren't same. You know there are many parts. Your dad one was one of them. And would you like to see another? Would you like to live another life and see what would have happened and what kind of man you would have become? That was really the impacts of the series. She's a pro. You know, she's lucky lawless. I still pinch myself that I got to work with her the first time around. I am such a big fan. And yeah, she just stepped right back into it. She was fantastic. She and Nick always had a great working relationship. I feel that anybody else except Lucky Lawless as would just not even felt right. It was just a perfect way to start a new series, and Joy our had to be original. Lawless was last seen in the season 2, final of the Spartacus, where he jumped off a cliff with baby in tow. Her final act after being abused by Ashur for such a long time. Her time on Spartacus was memorable because of her manipulative statistics for power and subsequent tragic end, making her a compelling, complex character. Now she will be joining the cast of Spartacus, House of Ashur to lay the groundwork for the how the little characters now timeline plays out. The show appears to be leaning more heavily into the supernatural with Eclipse revision into. While it's unclear if it came back beyond the same, her presence will do no doubt be felt across the show. With the setup for Spartacus' House of Ashur revealed, it remains to be seen if action are present or a punishment for the little character. All that certain is, with Ashur now in a new position of power in a different domain. He could make a name for himself in ways that the history he was previously affronted. Lucky Lawless has set up a surprise return to the Spartacus franchise in a new clip from its upcoming sequel series. House of Ashur. The upcoming Spartacus House of Ashur tells a reimagined version of Ashur's fate from original series. This involves him becoming in league with the Crassus, leading to a host of new challenges he needs to face. Northernline has released a clip from Spartacus, House of Ashur, which sees Lawless return as a in the spin-off show. The clip reveals are confronting Ashur in the underworld following his death in Spartacus season 2. While holding baby, she tells Ashur she is getting him on a new life path, confirming she is the catalyst for the spin-off. Based on the clip, it appears the gods have found favor in him, so he is not killed by Navia at the top of Mount. Lawless return explained in new timeline, while also confirming the show will be following the same Ashur from the original series. It justifies how this spin-off is happening while also delivering a major character's return. In addition to the clip, creator Stamanas, DeKnight explained the mindset behind having the reason behind Ashur's distraction in a new timeline. Spartacus House of Ashur premiered in December, leading some viewers to wonder when it's set in the Spartacus timeline and if it's even in the alternate reality of the 2010 series. The original Spartacus premiered on Starz in 2010 and ran for 3 seasons and a mini-series in that time. The Sword and Snabble's historical drama series is inspired by the gladiator who led a major slave uprising in the Roman Republic between 73 and 71 BC in 2023. It was announced that series would be revived, and in December 2025, Spartacus House of Ashur premiered But when is it set? Spartacus' House of Ashur takes place 6 months after Spartacus, War of the Damned, which is the third season of the original show and the end of Spartacus' storyline. At the end of Spartacus, much like in the legendary movie by Stanley Kubrick, Spartacus ends up dead, happily dead a free man. The seas of a power struggles between the Crassus, Caesar, and promptly began to take form at the end of the original series, suggesting that despite its victory over Spartacus, it will only be short-lived. House of Ashur plays with that ending in an interesting way in the new series on Starz. At the end of the Spartacus season 2, subtitled Navias slays Ashur, cutting the villainous former gladiator's head clean off, which was a nicer and he probably deserved. Observant readers will note. However, that will show he is called House of Ashur. So is Ashur back as how is he back? Alternate history. Hijinks House of Ashur makes me one small. Change to Spartacus and despite our world where Ashur survived the event of Spartacus. The 10-episode season follows Ashur as he comes to own the gladiator's goal that he once served under. Considering House of Ashur is set in an altered timeline, you can expect to see some characters you might not have assumed would appear. Starting with Lucy Lawless, who returned for a cameo as meeting Ashur in the underworld and giving him a chance to go back after being killed. Back in Rome and alive, Ashur made some characters who are new to the series, including Chorus, Agila, and Hilaria. As it stands, Nike, Tarabay, and Lawless are the only returning cast member we know of so far for Spartacus House of Ashur. Spartacus House of Ashur, the first standalone spin-off series of the Starz franchise, which began with the 2010 Spartacus, Blood and Sand, is now available for streaming worldwide. This new show retains just 3 characters and 2 cast members from the original series, as it stars an alternate version of Syrian former gladiator's Ashur story. Actress Naked Tarabay is back for this rewrite Roman history, in which his character survived the slave revolt led by Spartacus and inherited the gladiator school of his deceased master Quintus Betrayal. Besides his statueless character and setting, however, House of Ashur serves up a very different narrative from its parent show. Spartacus remains one of the best historical TV series to depict life in the late Roman Republic, with its spectacular combat sequences, complemented with an evocative portrayal of the social movement during this period of history. Yet House of Ashur actually goes even further with its perspective insight into the political intrigue of the day, as well as Ashur and the gladiator. We are introduced to various characters from the ruling Roman and Scotiary. Then they are the slaves who don't engage in deadly battle in the arena. Overall, the cast of the Spartacus House of Ashur gives us a wide-ranging perspective on the state of play in Rome before the fall of the Republic. Actor Jamie Slater is his Julius Caesar role in Spartacus. House of Ashur, the sequel to the original Spartacus series on Starz. The alternate history now follows Ashur as he is given a second chance at life, gaining more power after he was not killed on Mount. The characters in House of Ashur also include Julius Caesar and his wife Cornelia. In a pre-release interview with Screen Rant's Slater, who plays Cornelia, unpacked her and Julius Caesar's role in Spartacus. House of Ashur addressing how attached the pair are to one another. The actor cast a duo partner in crime with a deep trust for each other, something that will add in their scheme throughout the series. Screen Rant, Caesar and Cornelia seem quite taken with each other, which is nice to see on his show. What can you tell me about their dynamic and how it developed over season 1? Jamie Slater. Yes, political brings and Caesar to tone. They have to colonize Ashur's villa to kick things and get things going into their direction. They are very much in love with each other. This was a love match, which is not usually the case with the marriage in ancient Rome. When Ashur awakens in his newfound reality, he has become allied not only with the Crassus, but also with Caesar, Spartacus is also dead in this timeline at this point, indicating some major historical shift could transpire throughout. This includes scheming by Caesar and Cornelia to try and take more power for themselves in Rome, potentially upsetting the natural balance of things. By the end of the episode, too, House of Ashur story has not completely focused on how Caesar and Cornelia are going to begin scheming with one another. The most Caesar has done is send a titular house to Apian, removing rotting corpses from the arena. This was done to ensure Ashur know his place at the bottom of Rome's social ladder. But even and Cornelia have a long way to go before they have gained as much power as they ended up with historically. Given their current portrayal in the series, the Jews seem poised to take the power sooner rather than later. Ashur and his gladiators have been the core focus. It will likely shift in episode to come. With latest statement, it seems like as Spartacus' house of Ashur's timeline unfold, Caesar and Cornelia are destined to make moves that see them climbing to power in careful yet notable ways. Although there is no telling what they will do get where they want to go, they appear to be highly motivated based on what the actors said. Since the series has only just begun, it remains to be seen how Spartacus' House of Ashur will see their pace ambitious grow, since the show is still laying the groundwork for its main character and everyone around him. This may take some time, but when it does happen, it will deliver plenty of promising moments between the two lovers. Spartacus' House of Ashur's most surprising romantic couple gets a teaser from series star Graham, who portrays courage. In Spartacus' House of Ashur's character lineup, Courage is a former gladiator who won his freedom. I was promised romance for you in this, and I was not disappointed. However, I don't know what I am allowed to say about said romance. So I would love to know what you can tease about Corey's personal life outside the ludus. Graham, yeah, was a unique opportunity for me. As you may know, I have never even gotten a really in a shows. In Outlander, I had a chair broken over my head. It was great to explore that side of my character, the vulnerable and emotional side. He is very repressed. I suppose although we don't know his backstory, I suspect he's been hurt badly in the past. We just don't know exactly how. I also think that the simple fact is that the world of Rome is very volatile, and it's very difficult to form close relationship with anybody. Interestingly, at that time, a gay relationship in ancient Rome was okay between a master and a slave, but not between two free men. These two peoples are taking an enormous risk in doing what they are doing. But what overcomes that is Cody's desire to finally open his heart and let someone in. That's something that's a universal. We have all been in a situation like that, where one or both of you are hesitant to reveal yourself to the other. And then when you do, there is no closing that door. That's the beauty of exploring real, emotional, tender relationship in any show, and this is no exception. Corey marks MC's of first guy role in any piece of media. Alongside the type of love story he explains is rare for him to bring the screen. He uses example of his character in The Outlander. MC Kenzie and Williams MC Kenzie as portrayal where he has not been the center of a romantic storyline. His Spartacus House of a short story is a far cry from what is used in his TV role. While Corey has shown himself to be an adamant defender of the brotherhood, even nearly beating to death for killing someone, he harbored his own secret that go against the rule, that being his love, who is another free man. For now, McTavish's statement is the only clarity provided that something is going to happen involving the pair, hinting that forbidden love is going to be a major part of how events in the series play out. Given Corey's importance to the House of Ashur in the show, it seems likely the protagonist will somehow get involved in whatever happens next. This forbidden romance is just one layer to Corey's character. The former gladiator is also proud of work he does in keeping order, something that almost caused him to kill in the process. However, his forbidden relationship makes him somewhat two-sided, which could crack his loyalty to Rome depending on how events unfold. More than a decade after Spartacus went off the air, a spin-off series entitled Spartacus, House of Ashur has been announced to take viewers back to ancient Rome once again. Beginning with its first season in 2010, Spartacus concerned a real-life eponymous figure who was a gladiator who led a successful slave uprising between the years 73 and 71 BCE. With an eye toward action and history, Spartacus stretched out across the exciting season on Starz before finally being cancelled in 2013. Arriving on the small screen around the small town as contemporaries like Game of Thrones. Spartacus had plenty of the show-bucking action but supplemented it with historical intrigue. Spartacus was not always historically accurate, struck a fine balance between total fabrication and a true story from ancient history. Demand has always been high for a return to the universe of specters, and now Osmina will present a what-if scenario. Details are scarce about Spartacus, House of Ashur, but it is already shaping up to be a worthy successor to 2010 TV classic. Many months after the last update arrived, the latest news comes in the form of teaser trailer and release window for Spartacus, House of Ashur. The sub-1-minute teaser reveals us returning Ashur as he returned to the arena in the timeline-changing series, highlighting the show's eroticism and thrilling action. The trailer features several moments of gladiator doing battle in front of a hungry audience. It does not give away much. The trailer does conclude with a reveal that Spartacus House of Ashur is set to arrive on Starz in fall 2025. Sadly, the show on Starz in fall 2025 won't be dropping anytime soon, and the premium cable channel was not able to narrow the release window down to a specific date yet. However, Starz will provide a more detailed synopsis of what's in store when a show returns later in 2025. House of Ashur will be a history-bending, erotic, thrilling roller coaster experience that builds on everything that made the original series a colossal hit. The series poses the question: what if Ashur Nick had not died on Mount Viewer at the end of the Spartacus? And what if he had been gifted the gladiator school once owned by betrayers in return for aiding the Romans in killing Spartacus and putting an end to slave rebellion? It would take until May 2024 for all the details to come out. The revivals of Spartacus was first days back in February 2023. Upon initial announcement, showrunner 7's DeKnight was attached to what was a more straightforward continuation. However, in the intervening year, the project took a different turn and became Spartacus. House of Ashur, it's unclear why so many changes took place, but the series has seen solidified creativity. In January 2025, it was announced that House of Ashur will premiere in fall 2025, but a more specific release date is still elusive. The first name attached to the upcoming spin-off Spartacus was original series actor Nick, who returned as the villain's Ashur. The gladiators originally met his doom on the slope of the Mount Vesuvius when he was dispatched by him before he could betray that slave uprising and earn a hefty reward from Roman government. First, Spartacus, a source of Ashur, is giving viewer an alternate timeline where Ashur was successful. It is unclear which other characters could return, and no other returning cast members have been announced yet. However, Starz has already disclosed the rest of the main cast of House of Ashur, and veteran character actor Graham is joining the show as Ashur's doctor goddess. Ivana and Jamika will play Mesha and Hilara, respectively Ashur's household slave who are engaged in a love triangle with their master. Rival gladiators Satyrs and Tracron will oppose Ashur, while Chenika Davis will play the female gladiator. A house with the best gladiators is no different from one without any of it. They never get the opportunity to showcase their talent and hopefully not get killed in the arena. Training excellent gladiator is one piece of puzzle. A piece Ashur has been looking for and appear to have found in Achelia. He has never been one to leave his swear to his god, with his common refrain being fuck the god. But in Spartacus House of Ashur Season 1 Episode 4, Blood and Bone, the god smiles smile on him after he finds himself in the right place at the right time. This episode differs from the predecessor in that it does not focus on the Rome's. Instead, it explores the relationship between these characters and brings to light some of the dynamics that have eluded us for long. For example, it shows Corey's relationship has been atypical of her doctor and Domias as they spar at every chance they get, with no clear winner in sight. I have wondered why they don't go their separate ways until we learn. They value victory in the arena above all else and know they are each other's parts of vision. If constant bickering is a price to be paid, then they will gladly pay it. However, their sparing is subdued in this hour as Corey discovers from his near death attack and retreat to be confirmed of his dominance house to hill. War gets around and falls on Peter's ear, who immediately pays a visit. We could all use a man who will drop anything at a slight hint for danger coming our way. This audio is turning out to be the best tip of this show. There has been some manipulation in place of the last couple of the episode, but blood and bone lays intention bear as a bitter. Peter has been bleeding his courtship and has been very forward about his desire for goddess. So it's no surprise that he is initiated intimacy after seeking clarification that Chorus does like him. Their first kiss is nothing special, but it finally confirmed to Chorus that he also has feelings for Orbiter, and Ashur's proposal to cut off. Communication with him is a non-starter. Ashur holds a special spell in start as the man who stopped her late husband killer. She was intrigued by him when they first met. However, the god of love and desire had planned, as the tragedy turns out to be the best thing for Ashur and Virgia. While her mother and friends take Virgia on a fun land and shopping therapy, they are attacked by the kidnapper and lose a life before Ashur and Corey step in, neutralizing the threat with swiftness. If Virgia was not into Ashur for killing Spartacus, she is now for saving her life. It's an all-consuming connection that threat to topple the status quo, and won't be happy about it. We could all use a man who will save us from cold-blooded killer and the suffocating embarrass of an murder. Not only does he get a potential wife, but Ashur also his biggest wife, wise, wish fulfilled an invitation to the ludus apocalypse. This has already been working toward from long term, but the gods another plan. After he'll curse their name if anyone were to bring it up. With a spot in the game secured, all that remains is for the House of Ashur to present the champion. The ludus falls into the shows when the dominus makes his decision, and another relationship takes a hit. While his fierce fighter, I remain unconvinced that she is capable of bringing glory to the house. Sure, she is nothing like Rome has ever seen, but is that enough? She needs to be the good fighter, and thus far I am not sure. She had a grit and a determination, but her skills leave something to be desired. However, I want to see her carry the mantle, if only to upset the men who have gotten their panties. Twist is at the board that basically this is allowed with people who have convinced themselves that they deserve something, and it's a great injustice. It's time to run to the endures of the episodes of Spartacus. House of Ashur unworthy picks up right where the show's 2 episodes premiere left off, with the gladiators having gained the respect of goddess. After she managed to draw blood in a duel to the death, Ashur has strong opinion about Cody's approach to testing her and decided to send his doctor on a mission outside the Indus wall. This episode is where things really start picking up for Spartacus, House of Ashur, with some great politicking drama at the ludus, both in the fighting pit and among the house slave Hilara and Messia, and the most intense fight yet for this series. Let's get right into the fall. Unworthy beings with the Ashurs and Chorus hashing out their differences over how things went on with Achelia and the Creticus, the gladiators who she killed in the episode 2 after he attempted to rape her. Ashur is frustrated that Chorus tested with real sword where she could have died. Chorus is upset that Ashur seemed to be indifferent to the death of him, since the Indus was not exactly overflowing with talented warriors. It's an excellently scripted and acted scene, where Chorus and Ashur live and each other as near equal in a way that adds a lot of depth to their partnership. Of course, they are not quite equal. After Ashur gets Chorus to admit that he spared because he proved her self-worthy, which supported Ashur's faith in her ability. The Dominus decided to test Chorus' own loyalty by sending him to the Capua on a secret mission. We find out the true nature of that mission by the time the credit roll, and a gradual reveal is one of the episodes of Trent, with Chorus leading out of the Indus for the term. He names Gladius as doctor in his stead. Gladius is the oldest gladiator in the ludus and a former comrade of Chorus. He is an interesting character, and we need his time to get a better feel for who he is, as he tried to regain in his headstrong, San Charcon, and quash the growing resentment among the gladiators for the woman fighter training in their midst. While Cillius trains the gladiators, Ashur observes from on high with Ilara and Misha. He can tell that something is holding Achilia back, but can't quite put his thumb on what it might be. This leads a confession from Hilara that she visited Achilia in her cell and has suspicions that whatever ghosts of power hunt had here tried to do securing on her hand. Spartacus' House of Ashur keeps on staying on streaming. Janio's spin-off to the Spartacus universe has received divisive reviews since his debut, but it continued to prove its a hit. Janio Brioca's series debuted on Starz on December 5, and it was an instant hit on streaming platform. The show has been constantly dominating the chart, as it's been number 2 title for the past week. However, Spartacus House of Ashur is also slaying the competition on a different platform, Prime Video Flexible Patrol Report. Although the series is not available to stream on Prime Video in the US. The show is available on the Amazon platform in different territories across Europe and Turkey. It reached number 2 spot in several countries, including Australia, Germany, and in Norway, and held on the constantly in fourth place in Turkey for the past week. The historical drama series is currently reaching its halfway point on December 26 with episode 5, following the new episodes which is written by Adam Bradley and the show's creator, Stephen S. DeKnight, and is set to debut on December 26. Spartacus House of Ashur will take a new break and return with new episode on January 9. The spin-off series serves as a sequel to Spartacus. It officially brings back the titular character, played by Nick A. Tarabay, however, is a fan of the original series. Now the characters had been killed on Mount Vis, where he was dissipated by Nevia. In the spin-off, they reconnected his ending and set him into the alternative timeline, where he lived and gifted gladiators. The official logline read, it explored a what-if scenario in which Ashur survived the events and is rewarded with the gladiator school he once served. The series follows his rise to power as a dominus in a brutal world of Roman gladiator. A part he takes with the help of fierce gladiators named Agilia. Spartacus House of Ashur divided the critics and audiences. It received a stellar 92% approval from the former on Rotten Tomatoes, but only 46% from the audience, as it was dragged for allegedly being too woke. The presence of the first Spartacus gladiatrix was not met with, and fans slammed it as too woke and feminist. Spartacus House of Ashur has certainly managed to take what's old and make it new again after just 3 episodes. The series has clearly solidified itself as a marked departure from the original show, while at the time retaining all the things we loved about 2010 Sword and Sandal epic. Episode 4 Blood and Bone takes things even further, proving yet again that this is not the Ashur of yesterday, but an entirely new beast. There is even more cunning that he was while under the dome of betrayals. Dropping today on the Starz app, Spartacus House of Ashur's episode 4 was filled with the intrigue and expected kiss, and perhaps the most bloody spin-off has seen today following a wild battle that came out of nowhere and worked to Ashur's advantage by the time it was all said and done. To say that has been struggling to find her place in the house of Ashur would be an understatement. Ever since he arrived on the scene, she has been knocked down time and time again, both physically and mentally. Just when you think he is going to finally best someone in training, she fails to discern any bloody mess despite her best effort. Ashur branding her with the mark of the brotherhood. Absent test certainly did not help with her any point with her fellow gladiator and has made her even more of target than before. That being said, episode 4 finally sees the gladiatrix find her footing falling somewhat with gladiators who ask her to think of her upcoming opponent in the arena. The brothers Ferex, not as three singular men to defeat, but a trio that stand as a one unit and fight as such. That's not the case with the man she is training with, especially his son. So he gives her some tips on how to defeat her opponent, which eventually pay off. Following a brutal training session, emerges trying to sell this device, which results in driving a wedge between father and son. If you thought things were spicy between Chorus and Opecher, in episode 3, wait until you feast your eyes upon blood and bone. Episode 4. Once more sees Ashur's Dr. Breakford with the Lannister in a steamy bath. Seeing that setup thanks to the injury Chorus sustained at the hands of the scheme to eliminate him from the equation. When Opecher hears that he was injured, he immediately heads to the house of Ashur to the severity of his wound. Despite the unexpected arrival, Ashur welcomed Opecher with open arms, knowing he holds away or censure and the upcoming game, something he has been trying to gain positive. Departing of the market, Ashur leaves Opecher and Chorus to their own devices, which following a few sedative words from the younger man, resulting in Chorus embarrassing him. It was for me one of the joys of doing the show, being able to explore that side of character. I don't think I have ever really had the opportunity to do that on screen. Elsewhere in Spartacus' House of Ashur's episode 4, Ashur is on cloud 9 over the coming arrival. His benefactor who seemingly sent word that he is paying a visit despite the trouble going on between him. Pompey and his pirate dad have been mentioned in passing. However, Ashur's hopes are quickly dashed when he learns that Grace's luggage will be arriving ahead of him, and it's up to the Syrian to set this delivered safely to his villa. Taking Chorus with him, he leads out to see the task and is then treated to be serious first real bloodbath. It just so happened that her daughter, Virgia and friend Horgia, are in the same vicinity, shopping for some delightful Egyptian fabric. Out of nowhere, is struck down by the aforementioned who attack and separate mother and daughter. While Chorus goes after Corsica, Ashur comes to the rescue of Virgia, following a lengthy battle. The Lannister and his doctor emerge as victor, dispatching the pirates in brutal fashion. As a reward for their effort, Sancho's grant Ashur is one wish, position in the upcoming games of the. As such, he tells Chorus that there is no more need for him to be in the company of Opeter, which is sure to cause some problems down the road. However, the fire burning within Ashur at such a gift is quickly when it is revealed that is actually Gaius Julius Caesar paying a visit to his villa, and not Gaius. Needless to say, the arrival of Caesar and his wife, Cornelia, is sure to throw a wrench in things next week. How will he react once he learns that Ashur planned to have a woman fight as champion of his house? In fact, what will all Capua think? Will it have the desired effect the Syrian want? Or will it backfire once he steps into this arena with the brothers Ferox? We will have to wait until December 26 to find out. But in the meantime, episode 4 of Spartacus House of Ashur, Blood and Bone, is streaming now on the Starz app. IGN recently hosted a special screening of the first 2 episodes of Spartacus House of Ashur in Los Angeles before 2 episode premiere on December 5. Series creators known as DeKnight and Star Nike. Tarabay were on hand for the event and took part in the Q&A. After the screening where they discussed the series, how it came to be, and what we can look forward to seeing. For those who don't know, Spartacus House of Ashur is an alternate history that returned to the world of Spartacus and follows previous series antagonist Ashur. In this version, he leads to the events on Mount, became owner of the ludus, gladiator training that once owned him when he was an enslaved gladiator. It's been 12 years since the original run of Spartacus ended, and DeKnight said getting to work with Tarabay again and expecting on the groundwork they laid for a show were two of the major reasons he wanted to return for the show. The Ashur characters to me is so intriguing and sad. He is a guy when he first got to as a gladiator. He just wanted to be part of the brotherhood. I always say if Ashur had gotten a hug back then, he would have been a different person. But he was mocked and ridiculous and humiliated, and it turned him bitter. So I love the idea of taking this man and giving him a chance to be a better person. Can he be a better person? Or will his demons keep dragging him down? Tarabay expanded on that, saying that now that his story is told from his perspective, we'll see new face to him what we have not before. In this season, you will see a softer side of Ashur, he said, a loving side, a kind of vulnerable side to Ashur. And because of this, because of his feelings now, he will do things that you won't think that he would do. And that's all I can say about it. Through the original run of Spartacus, Ashur was a character the audiences loved to hate. Now he is a protagonist and given a chance at redemption. But Tarabay is not worried about how the audiences will receive him. My job as an actor is to honor the writing. That's all I do. He said, how you guys will perceive it, that's up to you. I leave that to your imagination. I would not dare to tell you how you should feel or should not feel. Whatever you feel is how you feel. I do my job and the rest is up to the gods. The original of the Spartacus included real history event, but telling this new story that takes place in an alternate timeline has allowed the show to stray from history in a way that DeKnight called very freeing. We have some historical guideposts, but after that, in the first episode, you see Ashur breaking first history by introducing the first female gladiator. DeKnight said, historically that actually come about 80 years later. But now that Ashur is alive, he upset history and that's just the first prequel. There are many more surprises coming. While Spartacus House of Ashur is obviously focused on an existing character, DeKnight made it clear he intended for the show to be approachable for newcomers too. Episode 1 begins with a segment meant to introduce no fan to the show watch. We really wanted that opening to be an homage to the original fans and a primer for the new fan. DeKnight said to really set the world, reset the stage, and then we are just driving not into it and we figure everybody will catch up. The show will debut with a 2-episode premiere on December 5 on Starz and the Starz app, with subsequent episodes airing each Friday afterward. The screening ICN hosted also showed those first 2 episodes, and DeKnight and Tarabay said they are just at the top of the iceberg of what this season has to offer. Seriously, it's a roller coaster. Tarabay said, I always said by the time we get to episode 5 and from 5 to 10, I don't know what he has going on. Really, it's so good. There is a couple of episodes that I truly felt that we are in Greek tragedy. It was so good. And the very last scene of the first season is episode 10. All of you are gonna be like, what the fuck just happened? Did you really go there? I cannot wait. Spartacus House of Ashur is an unrelenting sword and sandals epic virtue of its predecessor, filled with sun-blocked gladiators combat, political plotting and sexual appetite that upbrings a desire for power. The Starz sequel series cuts us sweat through audiences, exceptions, creators, damages. Knight was known for producing the superior, daredevil adaptations on Netflix. Spar has his return to the Roman melodrama and refuses to hold back, unleashing a hyper-stylized web of intrigue on audiences would the House of Ashur would backbone. This return to Homes for 7 as cannot include Inda's very wanton desire and audiences could imagine, depicting the hybrid blood-relating and family infighting among those in and out of arena. This show is rifled with overstatured successes, bold and presence of intent, alongside movement of this latter in slow motion. It is neither for the meek nor mild. House of Shows really trades in subtitle, letting languages of the genre that is both poetic and profane as is welcome, Nike Tarabay back of the dead. For newbies unfamiliar with the legacy of Spartacus on Star, the precursor to Game of Thrones carved out a uniqueness in popular culture, dominating television for a three-season run that may have proved unpopular among critics but found audiences much more respectful. 15 years after Spartacus season 1, House of Shows arrived with all unconvincing intent of a Roman general plotting an ascension starting with the arrival of Ashur, himself in one of the most convoluted plot twists ever to grace a small screen. In the role of Ashur's Nikki, Tarabay takes his new lease of his life literally, drawing up plans in the opening episode that new audiences might struggle with. For those going into the series without background knowledge, please hear this word a warning. Motivations, aspiration, and vendors will only become clear after several episodes, leaving audiences with nothing but the snaringly chewing of a show to entertain them initially. However, for those who do to distance Spartacus, House of Ashur offers ample reward. Among these committed examples, there is a distinct sense of one unpunished starting with the headliner Tarabay. It is solid performances prepare the surprising nuance that single-handedly walks a thin line between the vaudeville villainy and caricature. A technique that seems like overacting until audiences realize Spartacus' House of Ashur thrives on this approach. Both beholden to Julius Caesar and everything Rome represent, yet standing apart to establish his own identity. Tarabay performances veer between political pragmatics and subservient subject. In retrospect, Ulysses will realize this is what holds House of Ashur, since he is restructured son of Rome, is both a savvy manipulator of human nature and knows how to work the system from within. For that reason, Ashur represents the most unlikely anti-hero in this example, yet earns it outright by the end. Potentially only the presence of the Graham Scories gives this dominus a run for the memory money when it comes to be claiming that title. Depending on your passion, Graham's McTavish will later to be familiar to audiences who love the Hobbit trilogy to Netflix's visual adaptation. As an actor, he is an eponymous with quality television shows from House of Dragon to Outlander, making him a perfect fit for the role of Chorus in Spartacus. House of Ashur, right-hand man to be Dominus and trusted ally in time of adversity as both meditator and confident. Chorus is unmatched when it comes to be reading the room for his closest friend. Outwardly masculine in demeanor, Chorus brings a degree of heavy-handed diplomacy to this series and is pivotal in helping Ashur negotiate Roman etiquette. Audiences will quickly become embroiled in the cloak and dagger escaped of this formidable Jew, who curry favor with Roman high society, purely to satisfy ambition, with a cool head and furious fighting skill. This glorified trainer leaves an indelible mark on his show, embarrassing a degree of risk in his depiction that falls in line with the liberal perspective Roman had their own intimacy. For an actor who has often played character defined by their maleness, Chorus is a departure that feels more inclusive than anything McTavish has tackled before, however. This aspect of the character is not one made for the calculated reason, such as audience's demographics, but on one that genuinely reflect the term. In ancient Rome, no one judged or even looked west. In fact, physical attraction was the least interesting part of any person. For audiences willing to look beneath the surface of Spartacus, House of Issue, gender identity, and politics will prove to be a recording term that are depth. Nowhere more so than its representation of women in the series and the role they choose to play. Subservience and femininity in the situations of Spartacus are valued above strength and independence. Those who stop outside those boundaries are open to ridicule, prejudice, and mockery. Janica Davis, who also has a small but memorable part in IT, Welcome to Terry, comes front and center as Achelia in the debate audiences will have around that subject. Unlike other women in House of Ashur, who rely on their femininity to gain power and status, becomes an icon of female improvement, Achilles' character is one element that Spartacus is Spartacus from other example of subgenre, expanding the argument around in that include blurring lines between genders identity. Her biggest supporter is equally out of step with the status quo, looking to make their mark in society and elevate their eventures by involving them directly. Adding another layer to this melodrama that exchange audiences' expectations and explore contemporary issue. It highlights the sophisticated storytelling by DeKnight and his collective, illustrating how diverse House of Ashur really is despite first impression. Her refusal makes Achelia one of the strongest women in House of Ashur beyond the bloodletting and gender stereotype that inhabit other element of this show that remains a revelation. One that slowly changed the opinions of those around her as a single-minded attitude plays dividends, slowly began to undermine this male-dominated society, who started sitting up and taking more notice. If only the language they use had been afforded just some intention to little, then Spartacus' House of Ashur would have made great rather than good television. Language is where this series drops the bar to point of destruction. Overly elaborate wordplay that sets out to make audiences work undermine a lot of this drama. This Spartacus loses even more ground by dropping expletive into very other sensitive, as if that made these characters more contemporary, employing rhyming couplet that come closer to the Shakespeare and closer in complexity make the clearly episode and uphill struggle. Even when audiences have become accustomed to the unique flow of these conversations between characters, House of Ashur still prove challenging. If anything, this reliance on overly elaborate language draws attention to other inconsistencies that might have slipped by unnoticed. Set designs between the location, either on sound stage or elsewhere, variability alongside inconsistency in visual effect. It will burst the bubble of some audiences who let your attention drift during dialogue scene, undoing the good work which has come before. However, that inconsistency will be easily overlooked when Spartacus' House of Ashur is viewed by avid fan. There is such a solid fan base for Spartacus that its sequel has little to worry about. Tarabay has barely aged a day in the 12 years since the original final, and any evidence of it only worked to disadvantage. Those people hanging after the revival will feel like House of Ashur is a homecoming. This is the anti-hero who not only gets his shot at redemption but has earned himself a whole new show, one that looks to recapture the spirit of 2013 but update it for a new generation. However, those audiences who stumble into his show by accident and get past that language barrier might just be surprised by this new incarnation as well. As much as possible, House of Ashur aims to please the fan base faithful, but at least it tips at a high to contemporary culture, acknowledging the fact that things have moved on in terms of attitude and public perception. There might be slaughter aplenty in the arena among all the blood and sand, but Spartacus, House of Ashur knows that even a Dominus brought back from the dead must move with the time. During the third season of Spartacus, the Sword and Sandal drama that aired in early 2010 on Star, I showed a unique system schemer played by Nike. Tarabay muses about his ambition. We will throw the Bleeding Slaves Rebellion, its leader Spartacus, and take over the gladiator training school. I showed the follow who has brutally depicted in the second season of Seven's DeKnight historical drama series Spartacus 2012. Well, who is alive again? With thanks to an acknowledged yet deeply absurd plot devices enabling his simply astounding and highly convenient destruction. Like a Tarabay, character returned with every intention of releasing his own company of own and less lived fighter onto the sand of the gladiator arena. His secret weapon, an unknown gladiator's Agelia, who has nothing to lose and everything to prove to earn her freedom. That being said, parallel is hard to conjure in a world where anyone can be brought back into being by Pluto, and he is mad. Empowered significant female character or not something alien to be Spartacus universe to date. This show return is precedent of our future. It's been over a decade since season 4 concluded. So in today's social economy and current cultural climate, is there still room for a show like Spartacus? The first review for the Rival series in Orion and early reaction suggested that showrunners Davis, DeKnight and the cast have made good in their promise to a long-term fan. Critics say that new Spartacus delivers everything long-term. Fans loved about the original while adding fresh twists, compelling drama, and striking visual. And what if had been gifted the gladiator school, once owned by Betrayal in return for ending the Roman, killing Spartacus and putting in and the slave rebellion? Spartacus House of Ashur will consist of 10 episodes. The show does not have an exact release date, yet but Starz has slotted it for a winter 2005 premiere. To be afforded the opportunity to return a decade later to a series you loved is such a rare, wonderfully opportunity said DeKnight via a press statement. I could not be more excited to craft this next chapter in this Spartacus saga with stars long scared and incomparable Nick Tarabay. House of Ashur will be fifth. Spartacus says Falling 2010 Spartacus, Blood and Sand. The 2011 prequel series Spartacus, Gods of the Arena. 2012 Spartacus and 2013 Spartacus, War of the Damned. Joining among the cast are. There are also rumors that a couple of Spartacus franchise veterans might make a couple of surprises appearances. It's been a long 12 years since the bloodiest, sexiest show on television's last aired. Seven as DeKnight Spartacus, loosely based on the historical gladiator turned rebel who come to be challenged Rome, set itself apart from its realistically bloody, high-octane combat, open parade of the genders exclusively sexuality, and provocative focus on the politics of the arena, running for 4 seasons between 2010 and 2013. The series was hit off as for Starz and has retained a strong reputation with fans ever since in final bow. Here we are. However, in the era of thinking daily about the Roman Empire, also I'm told I'm more of an empire head myself. And there is still one big question of fans' mind. How can Spartacus be respectfully brought back when the Daedalus rebel has that? Simple and magical history altering reactor with its premiere this week. Spartacus House of Ashur broadly moves the franchise forward with a fresh, unflinching series that mostly capture what made the original great. Spartacus House of Ashur began with one of the most substantial return in the TV history. What if Ashur's Nick Tarabay had not been had beheaded and instead he survived to be the man who killed Spartacus and stopped the rebellion? In ancient Rome full of magical and figures god, anything is possible. Had a turncoat gladiator's fate changed in the afterlife. With the show's not a man who delivered the final blow to the Spartacus and saved the Roman allied. For his effort, Ashur is promoted to be dominus of his own house, navigating the political perils of Rome while leading the gladiators to complete the arena. Besides political positioning and betrayal, Ashur finds gladiators Agelia, controversially dropping her to lead his scatter of gladiators in hope that a fierce warrior woman will win crowd and elevate his fortune. Stakes only mount when Ashur draws the attention of none other than Julius Caesar and himself. Spartacus House of Ashur can't really be the anti-adoration series that its rebellious progenitor was. Given that it's based around the man who killed Spartacus, these are nonetheless remain a slide in the sequel, as Ashur seeks to claw his way upward in a Rome built for established families. Spartacus House of Ashur is very much doing its very thing versus entertaining one. Series lead Nick Tarabay gives complexity and a strong charismatic presence in his return as a titular character. Now commanding gladiators Paul instead of struggling to survive within while the story's political struggle for honor are capable, balanced against more action heavy element. Within the show existence assemble. Tanika Davison as Spartacus House of Ashur, only female gladiator. Constantly beset by follow competent who wish to see her downfall. The actresses deliver both the character's emotional complexity and her penchant for angry combat well, and Achilia one expands and grows as a show progress. The lifeblood of the sequel series. Here is Graham McTavish as Goris, a seasoned gladiator turned trainer who becomes roped into Ashur's ambitious but finds emotional connection at all his own. He is grizzled and capable, but MC Tavish as brilliant. Subtle layer to the characters throughout. While the show primarily revolves around Ashur's political ambition and mechanism, it's Corus who truly evolves as the story progresses. These within the 5 episodes made available for review. Spartacus House of Ashur also boasts a universally realistic blood and gore, not a strong fit for the more sequential of TV viewer. And anyone looking for instant combat should be satisfied, but a few technical elements, particularly early on, don't always work. One or early training sequences include combat that feels a little too slow to be authentic, even for training resulting in fight that feels more telegraphed and closer to stage combat than it should. It would also be desirable for the series to offer a few more open air scenes to give a scene of Rome scale. Since the season so far spent a lot of time in close squad, minor technical quibbles aside, most of the combat feels authentic and brutal. Spartacus House of Ashur essentially pulls off the miraculous, leaning on the mythological of ancient Roman belief to rewrite history and give our characters a new lease on life. It's clever and its work, outside of the event that enabled its premiere. The series otherwise retained the gritty real politic realism that the original show off revolved around. House of Ashur also largely returned to the original series shape, showcase of the ancient Roman idea, parodying the empire's ban-free culture alongside an unflinching gorge as violence. Not always simultaneously, Tarabay is a strong lead. Davis grows into her role quite well. And MCT Davis excel, while the show essentially follows Ashur's attempt to rise in Roman society. There's a room for rebellion to brew, leading to hope that his element of the original will come to the forefront in the future. In the meantime, Spartacus House of Ashur's recapture much of what made the original series great, and proves his franchise has not lost a beat in 12 years. It's been a long 12 years since the bloodiest, sexiest show on television's last aired. 7's DeKnight Spartacus, loosely based on the historical gladiators turned rebel who came to change Rome, set itself apart from its realistically bloody, high-octane combat, open parade of the gender inclusivity sexuality, and provocative focus on the politics of the arena. Running for focus season between 2010 and 2013, the series was hit for stars and has retained a strong reputation with fans ever since its final bow. Here we are, however, in the era of thinking daily about the Roman Empire. Also, I am told I am more of the empire head myself, and there's still one big question to fans' mind: how can Spartacus be respectfully brought back when a titular rebel has said? Simply a magical history altering reaction with its premiere hit this week. Spartacus also assured broadly moves the franchise forward with a fresh, unflinching series that mostly capture what made the original great. Spartacus House of Ashur began with one of the most substantial return in TV history. What if Ashur had not been beheaded and his seed survived to be the man who killed Spartacus and stopped the rebellion? In ancient Rome, full of magical and legal god, anything is possible. Here, the turned god gladiators fate changes in the afterlife. With Ashur now the man who delivered the final blow to the Spartacus and saved the Roman elite. For his effort, Ashur is promoted to be the dominus of his own house, navigating the political perils of Rome while reading the gladiator to be compete in the arena. Besides political positioning and betrayal, Ashur finds gladiators Agilia, controversially trapping her to lead his cadre of gladiators in hope that a fierce very woman will win the crowd and elevate his fortune. Stakes only mount when Ashur draw the attention of none other than the Julius Caesar himself. Spartacus' House of Ashur can't really be the anti-tradition series that this rebellious progenitor was, given that it's based around a man who, as they now killed Spartacus, there nonetheless remains a slight in the sequel, as Ashur seeks to claw his way upward in the Rome built for established family Spartacus. House of Ashur is very much doing its own thing, but it's an entertaining one. Series lead Nick Tarabay gives complexity and a strong, charismatic presence in his return as a titular character, now commanding a gladiator's pool instead of struggling to survive within one. While the story's political struggle for honor are capable balance against more action-heavy elements. Within the show, six instances assembles Thenica Devastations as Spartacus, House of Assure's only female gladiator, constantly blessed by a fellow combatant who wished to see her downfall. The actress delivers body characters, emotional complexity, and her penchant for angry combat well. As Achilles expanded and grows as Assure's progresses. The lifeblood of the sequel says, here is Graham McTavish as Chorus, a seasoned gladiator turned trainer who becomes roped into Assure's ambitions but finds emotional connection all his own. He is graceful and capable, but McTavish as brilliant. Subtle layers to the characters throughout. While the show primarily revolves around Assure's political ambition and mechanism, its chorus truly evolves as the story progresses, as leads within the 5 episodes made available for review. Spartacus' House of Ashur also boasts a universally elastic blood and gore, not a strong fit for the more TV viewer. One early training sequences include a combat that feels a little too slow to be authentic, even for training resulting in a fight that feels more telegraphed and closer to staged combat than it should. It would also be desirable for the series is to offer a few more open-air scenes to give a scene of Rome scale, since the season so far spends a lot of time in close quarter. Minor technical quips aside, most of the combat feels authentic and brutal, and the effects department makes combat injuries look shockingly realistic, only adding to the scene of danger in the arena. Spartacus' House of Ashes essentially pulls off a miraculous, leaning on the mythological of ancient Roman belief to rewrite history and gives a character a new lease on life. It's clever and its work. Outside of the event that enable its premises, the series otherwise retained the gritty, real politic realism that the original show often revolved around. Spartacus' House of Ashur also largely retained the original series deep showcases of the ancient Roman IT, parodying the empire's cultures alongside an unflinching of orgy of sex and violence. Tarabay is a strong lead. Davis grows into her role quite well, and MC Davis excels, while the show essentially follows Ashur's attempt to rise in the Roman society. The Spartacus saga holds a special place in my heart. It's one of the stories that introduced me to power of storytelling and showed just how much television can accomplish. Up to that point, I was obsessed with network show, but my deep dive into the Spartacus was like riding a sports bike after years on a bicycle with training wheel. I circle back every couple of years for comfort, and there is always something to discover. I have probably rewatched it for 5 times. The scale of the narrative romance, gore, action, and language took over my entire being, and for a while I spoke in Spartacus. No one in the whole wide world was happier than I was. He lacked honor, moral, and respect. He was a murderer, thief, cheater, and rapist, worse than the enslavers of Rome. Stamonas' DeKnight decision to base his show on Ashur was a choice. The man has no redeeming quality, and even when the oracle bring him back to the alternate life, he has not changed. But Ashur's moral bankruptness would not have been too evident if Spartacus and his people had not existed. They represented the absolute godness that sent him even in the face of great challenge. The preceding installment of this saga landed harder because they had a clear direction in mind, and slavery in all its forms across the land. It was an easy message to get behind because slavery is the biggest system in human history, and that seeing something for a species is capable of doing anything to each other and our environment. This righteous cause Spartacus was willing to lay his life for is what house of Ashur Lake. In its place is built a blinding aspiration of man, loyal to nothing but coin and power. But for all shortcomings, getting that coin is valid goal, especially with a character like Ashur. We know there is something beneath him, he will do anything for more coin and power. We last saw this burning desire to succeed in, but he had limit. Ashur's character is the love child of Spartacus that steadfast, addiction and unquenched thirst. Pulls are neat stick to bring the character back to life, offers him an opportunity in the underworld to the expensive what else could have been. And suddenly history has played out differently. He found Spartacus and is now the dominus of his own house. However, they don't give any justification for doing this. Is this a short penance is the afterlife? Instead of the Christian's version, where something in the dead burns or eternity. You allow the best version of your life over the hour. In this way of exacting revenge of Ashur's part in destroying her life and that of her beloved betters. The show does not say, and that silence is either genius or a fatal flaw. However, the questions might be irrelevant once someone immerses themselves in a familiar world. House of Ashur's biggest feat is its ability to recapture this world without missing a beat. It truly feels like we never left. It does not seem like 12 years have passed since Spartacus, the war of the damned. The nostalgia hits harder when we find ourselves in a house of Ashur, formerly the house of betrayers. This house has character. It is like nothing else in Rome, and seeing the Indus once again full of gladiators is exciting. Some things are the same, yet much has changed. We have a new doctor who is menacing as his predecessor. Patrick's performances as the ominous remains one of my all-time favorite, so I was very skeptical of Chorus. But rise to the occasion. He does. Chorus does not have the dominating presence ominous had, but his whip cracks with the same zeal. His word cuts as deep, and his voice booms as loud. Graham and McTavish brings gritty energy, with chorus that demand respect. For someone who is very spectacle, I am in love with the doctor. The same cannot be said of the ludus or the entire house at large, where trust is little and brotherhood is almost inexistent. This largely has to do with the new dominus, who has no regard for tradition or for unfeigned slogan. Everything begins and ends with money and power. Glory, we don't know her. The diversion interest will be what break his house, unless it inspire another rebellion. The gladiators feels disregarded and the dominus could not care less. Chorus is always a few seconds from bashing Ashur's head in. We and wars can only keep from the calm for so long, as even the most fun orgies must at the same point. I smell a rebellion and not just become some gladiators are breaking rank, because Spartacus is still alive at least in spirit. House of Ashur tried to keep Spartacus alive through other character, as his death is mortalized and conspiracies begin. Some gladiators think the beginnings of reign is hiding out somewhere. A theory that becomes plausible when the rebels are hanged, and Spartacus' body is nowhere to be found. It would be the plot twist of the century. Even in this alternate history, Spartacus were alive and began to bring righteous hell on Rome. Meanwhile, life is for the living. And Rome just must be Rome. That means slavery is still going on. The games are fiercest than ever. The power is ultimate prize. It sounds like a show's kind of party. The premiere does a great job of introducing the characters and the conflict as the Syrian seek to embed himself in the circle of righteous and most powerful. It's easier said than done since there is an established order, and he is ambitious can sometimes work against Ashur. He is like a hyena who painted himself with a spot and thinks he's like a leopard. They can smell the hyena in him forever. House of Ashur weaves an intricate web of fraud, where everyone has an agenda, are mutually exclusive. Friends can turn foes without notice, and betrayal is always expected. A sprinkle enough intrigue to make following the history worth it. However, the story would not be half as interesting without Australia. She brings a different energy that no man could. She is daring, fierce, and confrontational. Some of those traits are not so good for her sake, but she will find a way to use them to be her advantage. Would not be possible where it is not for a show's desire for coin and prosperity to break every rule in the book. These characteristics work in his and his lower favor because they allow the writer to be unpredictable, and that's almost always welcome in a story. The character breaks traditions and gives House of Ashur the spectacle it needs us to fill Spartacus' says role, left by the art history a timeline. The writers do a great job of introducing the character and revealing the many ways he wakes up the ludus. However, I am sure anti-woke rant are coming because Cecilia is a black woman. Women of color seem to drag Rancher from their mother's basement. Let me remind you, anti-worker, that this show has always had character of always is right from the center. Has worked to turn her raw survivor's instinct into entertainment at the arena. The shows she brings to the leaders and Rome promises top tier entertainment. Every critic seems to love this show and is pretty lovable. But I fail to see how everyone's moved on from the Spartacus part of it. He was a big reason for past success, and his absence leaves a gripping chasm that can break his show behind. That said, this is so much to enjoy, especially with Ashur's never-ending ambition and the rules he is willing to break to stand out. It's a kind of necessary will card energy to keep the momentum going. For now, I am a reluctant fan, waiting to see if getting coin is more noble than ending slavery. The show will win me over if boiling rebellions actually happen. There is something different about her spectacles handless nudity compared to a show like The Boy. While I do love the action scene, the slow motion is outdated. It might have enhanced the scene a decade ago. But everyone has our own is to be point that it has lot appeal. It takes a lot to keep enjoy sight like our running, and you can help. This week Starz debuted No Spartacus spin of House of Ashur, reviving the cult hit that helped shape modern prestige channel television. We have seen the first half of the season and have returned from the Ludus to tell you. From what I have seen, the answer is a yes that resounded as loud as any Colosseum crowd. Spartacus' House of the Ashur is both a retreat of familiar ground from Spartacus, as well as a fresh spin on the beloved gladiator. Series that feels a bit lighter and a lot more fun. The overriding feeling I had watching House of Ashur is that Spartacus' greatest demoness. DeKnight and his team had a grand time making this series that translated through the screen. And by the end of his fifth episode, I was firmly hooked and eager to see where the story goes next. Let's break things down a little bit further. There will be no spoiler in this review. So carry on without fear even if you are saving your first experiences on Descent for a 2 episode series premiere this Friday, December 5. The original Spartacus has a lot of dark humor, but on whole, it was a much more brooding show that House of Ashur sang to the basic setup. That series followed the titular slave turned gladiator as he led a rebellion that shook Rome to its foundation. There are some scenes that really dig into the supreme based up dynamics between the Roman noble and their slave, and in many things those unfortunate enough to end up under the Roman yoke were forced to do. At the same time, we knew going in that Spartacus was not responsible for overthrowing the Roman Empire in history. That made the series feel like a doomed march, where no matter how inspiring our hero was, things were always bound to end in a tragic way. Spartacus' House of Ashur is a very different beast. Nike Tarabay Ashur was a standout character from the original series, but he was also one of the most loathsome because he was utterly opportunistic and never afraid to stab those around him in the back if it is get him an inch of advantage. The spin-off does not necessarily make him more sympathetic, but is what if alternate history does present him as an underdog who is hated by all of the Roman nobility, and that gives him more room to win over the audiences. In this life, Ashur did not die on the slope of the Visayas after betraying his gladiator brother. Instead, he helped the Romans reach a crucial victory and was rewarded with the ludus of his former master. Tarabay is good as ever at reporting Ashur, perhaps even better than the original show thanks to the opportunities presented by the spawn of slightly lighter tone. Don't let the fact that Spartacus' House of Ashur is a little funnier than the original make you think it's all fun and games. There's definitely a feeling that Ashur is going toward the darker time. I hate that he premated the episode Asa. This series is bloody as hell, with some truly gruesome kills that are unlike I have seen on TV. The Mentor Spartacus has always felt like it was to make the gladiators better, as statistically as possible, and House of Ashur reveals in his talent. It's a blast to watch. The threat level gradually ramps up toward the show as well. It is a welcome counterbalance. One jewel is particularly reminded me of my personal favorite from the original Spartacus. The blindfolded fighting the gods of the arena. If you have seen it, you likely know how high of praise that is, and House of Ashur's return it. However, the great glorious battles of the Spartacus House of Ashur would be nothing if the show failed to get us invested in the character or has shoddy writing. Fortunately, these are both areas where his spin-off really excel. It is no small task to introduce a whole new cast of character in the Spartacus universe and expect viewers to care about him the way they did about the like of the mad Cruises and Spartacus House of Ashur actually pulls it off. Beyond the show, one of the other lead is the Graceless Doctor. After Ludus cosplay to be perfection by Graham, if you watch a lot of fantasy or historical fare, you have almost certainly seen McTavish before in show like Outlander, House of the Dragon, or The Witcher. But despite his deep catalog of chorus might be one of my favorite roles I have seen McTavish into date. It gives this excellent actor room to fully explore his range, and Spartacus House of Ashur is undoubtedly better for it. Chanika Davis does a phenomenal job as a female fairy. The gladiator's father-son duo today of Satyrs and Dragon present a fascinating dynamic that only grows better as the season goes on. And Roman nobles like Cornelia and Caesars and a Viperish that is delicious to watch. All of these great actors are propped up by writing that feels a notch above the original Spartacus, but in terms of his tightness as well as his forward use of language. Spartacus House of Ashur almost feels, at times, like watching a Shakespearean play, until someone drops a sudden expletive, the comedic things of which is shockingly consistent throughout. Those are a few of the main highlights that stood out to me for Spartacus House of Ashur. Of course, there are other. The costuming is lush, the setting gorgeous to look at, and the score sweeping enough to put you right back in the ludus despite the fact that it's been more than a decade since Spartacus was last on star. The plot has many twists and turns, and while it does take a little while to get some proper steam behind it, the build-up is good enough that it was always extremely entertained. The main drawback this series has is it if you don't like the pulpy style of Spartacus where blood fountain out of the dismembered body part and in here as Orge is only a halfway tracking shot away. You will not like this show, but if you remember Spartacus fondly or have always been curious about Starz hate Roman historical saga, then Spartacus House of Ashur is a highly entertaining watch that is very much worth the time. Spartacus House of Ashur is fitting revival spin-off, which leaves the original show intact while bringing viewers on an interesting alternate story set in the same world. There is a feeling that this is a production that has been honed as keenly as any blade in the lotus, as the writing, the action, acting, costuming, and virtually every other production element exude a sense of craft that include that absolutely over-the-top nudity and violence. If Spartacus House of Ashur wants to shock you, you can be sure that it is going to do it is exactly the way it intended, and it will pull it off. It's fun watch that I am eager to give a second go as the series airs on Starz over the next few months. History due to rewrite itself when the once defeated Ashur is resurrected and he returned as Dominus, the master of his own house, determined to rescue his rightful place among the elite. Ashur introduces the first gladiators to the arena, sparking a chain reaction of events unforeseen. It's been more than a decade since Odysseus felt the sting of blade and sent as only seven DeKnight Spartacus can deliver. Fortunately, those of the staff for Shakespeare's drama amidst the arena are in luck. Spartacus' House of Ashur is here, and it feels like it doesn't turn again in the best way possible. While on the surface, Spartacus' House of Ashur appear to be another blood-soaked arena drama with enough skin and depth to make jealous. I promise you it's much more than that, where the show excels is giving mature audiences they want, with realistic core full frontal nudity and plenty of wine. House of Assures offers more, presenting a dual tale of overcoming adversity, racism, and the corruption of power. At House of Assure's heart is Assure's Nick or Tarabay, the slayer of Spartacus and dominus of his own house, complete with little titleless talk of glory-hungry gladiator and enough drama to fill every seat in the hallowed arena. Tarabay plays Ashur with the passion that is sure to be noticed by the gods as an actor's theatrical background shines through in his character's every lyrical word and decisive action. The show offers much more than Tarabay's stellar was seen during performances he is reason to tune in. Sealing the show alongside Tarabay is a mildly bearded Graham's McTavish, who plays Corey's Ashur's doctor, a stoic man of strategy who trains and manages the gladiators of the House of Ashur. By far my favorite character on this show, MC Tavish explored his range by playing a queer, varied tone between his heart desire and remaining a respected man of the community that does not care for his preferences. When is not kicking absent on the training ground, he spends much of his time with the operator, an influential player in the arena games, an object of Corey's repressed affection. Every scene MC Tavish and Gibson share is electric. Their relationship is by far my favorite to watch develop in the show, as their commitment to passion, sincerity, and intrigue is unmatched. Watch for the hot tube scene. You will know what it means jail is. If there is another player who deserves her triumph in the spotlight, it's Tanika Davis as Achilia, the gods of death, as history's first gladiatrix. Achilia is a part of history in the making, acquired by Ashur and urged first gladiatrix, acquired by Ashur and urged for the arena. Davis plays Achilia with a factory mostly unseen, given the rarity of gladiatrix content in popular culture. Physically and emotionally, Davis is hypnotic, pulling you toward her side with every near defeat, defiant sacrifices, and dominance asserting finishing move. Do not resist mate Achilia, lest you want to end up on the receiving end of immortal combat like fatality. Plenty of other performances make their way through the blood and dust, including those by Claudia Black, India, Starr Smith, and Jan Hamill. Still, the first 5 episodes of this series offer more than visceral violence and opportunities to create drinking game using the word coke. The show's political intrigue is also delicious, with every bag, LA dealing, and Senate for shakedown having consequences that spread throughout all of Rome. Someone is always scheming, no one is safe, and people move on plan without warning, leaving surprises attack unexpected even to their own audiences. There is one skirmish in unexpected, particular that has such a genre beginning that I audibly gasped and swore in surprise. While I have only seen the first 5 episodes of Spartacus, House of Ashur, I eagerly await by the chance to see the remainder of the season. Between the show's unique dialect, unflinching approach to arena combat, and inclusivity about sex, relationship, and race, House of Ashur is firing on all cylinders so far. 12 years after Spartacus' final, the franchise continued. Starz distributed Spartacus, House of Ashur, which being back the titular character, popular from the franchise. The sword and sandal epic has already enhanced the critics, as it debuted with a perfect score on Rotten Tomato. Created by Stevens S. DeKnight, the show brings Nike, Tarabay back of dead. However, even with a popular character, Spartacus, House of Ashur, has proven to be extremely divisive as the audiences fully disagree with the critics and called out the show for being too woke. The series features 100% approval from the critics out of 10 review. The Hollywood Reporter's N.G. Han wrote, he is promising that House of Ashur seems to be understand that if it is the NFCW player that draws in front first, is a growing attachment to these characters and a lives that will keep us on the hook. Colliders David Ewing argue. Spartacus House of Ashur essentially pulls out the miraculous leaning on the mythological of ancient Roman, believed to rewrite history and give a character a new lease on life. CBR's own Martin Carr praised the sequel series as a worthy entry in the franchise, writing, there is such a solid fan base for Spartacus that the sequel has little to worry about. Tarabay has barely aged a day in the 12 years since the original final, and any evidence of this only worked to his advantage. The original series, which consisted of these three seasons, all featured score over 80% from the audiences. Season 1, Blood and Sand, and an exciting 88% Season 2, Spartacus. Vegans featured an 86% approval, while Season 3, Spartacus, War of the Damned, also had an 86% approval. The limited series Spartacus God of the Arena featured a 93% approval score. However, the new entry has a disappointing 45% falling debut. One review write, show is a bore. I gave it a chance because of the original Spartacus show was amazing and here I say was better than the Game of Thrones. So this show was better feared and it just woke me. A different person complained about how the reviews aggregator website deals with the review, claiming that bad reviews are removed as review bombing, claiming it reviewers who obviously have no agenda beyond pushing woke politics give a bad show a good review. That's absolutely fine with RT. And make no mistake, House of Ashur is bad. A different person wrote, Rotten critics don't care about good storytelling, they just like anything that checks a walk box. A different reviews shared a similar sentiment, claiming House of Ashur is horrible woke garbage. Another series that and Anderson Good's acting and in the chase to be most woke and feminist series out. Spartacus House of Ashur debuted with a 2-episode premiere. New episodes air every Friday until its final on January 30, 26. There are moments in televisions where the sand shift, the heavens crack open, and audiences are reminded, viscerally furious of the power of mythic storytelling. In the early 2010 Starz, Spartacus was exactly that kind of lightning strike. It was bold. It was dominant. It was unpolitically apathetic with the late Andy Whitefield and successor Lamb leading the charge. The saga of the Trident Rebel burned its way into the pop culture, leaving a trail of blood there and triumph its wake. When Spartacus War of the Champs closed the chapter on this legendary rebellion, many believed the tale was sealed in the annal of television history forever. But the gods apparently had other plan. The curing and creative artistry of series creator Stevenus DeKnight the world of Spartacus return, but not as expected, not as a retreat, not as a more resurrection instead. It arrives reborn in a flame and fury as a what-if saga of sickening ambitions. This is Spartacus, House of Ashur, a ruthless new version of the Roman world, and it is without questions one of the most baddest and premiers of the year, with blood, descendants, political venom, and a towering character. Transformations, House of Ashur, Right Knight, and the franchise with volcanic fears. The series, the snake who survived, and now for the first time, the serpent became the master. Set after the defeat of Spartacus in the original series, House of Ashur poses the questions. What if Vilnius Syrian had not died on Mount at the end of Spartacus? And what if he had been gifted a gladiator school once owned by in return for aiding the Romans in killing Spartacus and putting an end to slave rebellion? The bloodless decision House of Ashur makes and what instantly elevates it into much-watched territory is its core premise, a divergent timeline where the cunning Syrian slave Ashur seizes a moment of perfect and ends the life of Spartacus himself. In this alternate history, fate is rewritten. Ashur claims victory, and his ambitions does not go rewarded. Elevated by none other than Marcus, Ashur is granted status, wealth, and dominion. Now the Lanceta of the newly Christian house of Ashur in Capua. He stands in a position he never dreamed possible, and must navigate a labyrinth of Roman to keep it. The series wastes no time diving into the supernime politics of Roman Salad, where power is an endless feast, and every participant is ready to step through the table. This is where House of Assures electrifies the scene. DeKnight takes everything audiences loved about the original series. Gladiator's spectral moral rapidity, thrills and pivot into a razor-sharp examination of political manipulation, class ambitions, and the taxing pull of power. The rebellion may not be the focus this time, but the war of control is just as fierce. Mike Tarabay has always been one of the great scene stealers of the Spartacus franchise. His Ashur was a masterclass in slamming charisma, a villain so delightfully hateful that you realized every moment he is slated across the screen. But here elevated to lead, Tarabay with a magnitude that feels like the only natural evolution of everything he's built before. He becomes the underdog, the schemer, the survivor, the master, and in this new story, the unlikely protagonist. Tarabay's performance is rich, layered, deeply cunning, and at times unexpectedly vulnerable. He wields manipulation like a blade, but he also carries the soul of man who has clawed his way out of the dirt his entire life and refuses to fall back into it. Watching him maneuver through Roman salad, outlinking, outplaying, and outslinging everyone in his path is addictive television, pure and simple. This is a character we once loved to hate. Now is devastating twist of narrative genius. We root for him. Chalabi command every second of screen time. He is the pulse of House of Assures and absolute deliver. This new series introduces a House of Bold and Presence character, further expanding the intriguing world of House of Assure. Graham delivers a titan of performances as Corys, the doctor of the House of Assure, a former champion of the arena John Freeman, who served with honor, grit, and unwavering loyalty. After 10 years, made its long-awaited return to Starz this past Friday, with the two episodes premiere of House of Ashur. A news by now that imagines a world where the Syrian never died, but was instead the one to kill the award series has been scoring a high mark from critics on Rotten Tomato and currently a 100% rating. However, that's not the case with the show's audience score. As expected, House of the Ashur is facing all sort of criticism for featuring a female gladiator, otherwise known as a gladiatrix starring Danica, as Ashur's new acquisition whom he hoped to mold into his champion in the arena. House of Ashur has been the target of negative review from those who believe the series has gone work thanks to her addition to the franchise. Currently holding just a 45% rating from fans on Rotten Tomatoes once this currently reviewer wrote, "Go woke or go broke. This series are done," adding aloud all the other seasons until this crap. Another wrote a lengthy digestible when explaining how women were never gladiators and don't belong in the arena with a man. Another epic series destroyed by feminist disillusion. To incite a woman as a gladiator is beyond insulting to anyone with any concept of history or reality. Women were never gladiators, they are too weak, too slow, and too small. They would be killed instantly. Nothing has changed. Women have never been Navy SEAL, Delta Force, or any allied combat group because, once again, women are too weak, too slow, and too small. Women have Barbie, showing in a woman gladiators completely divorced from any historical reality. Just reeks of desperation, really words of yet another upset fan. The show itself is irrelevant and will soon fade from memory. Predicting someone else while another that did. It is so bad. Rotten Tomatoes critics don't care about good storytelling. They just like anything that checks a rock box. A black female gladiator that can beat several men. It's a stupid. Countrywide in 2025, it has gotten really boring. All that being said, scattered among the negative review for Spartacus, House of Ashurs on Rotten Tomatoes are the positive comment from those who appreciate what this new series has to offer. And the return of Star Nick as a Tertullus character, despite how despite he was in the original series, as one fan put it. Despite my dislike of Ashurs as a character in the original story, he is a very well written character so far. I love most of the new character, especially this inclusion of a female gladiator. It's such a new and fresh idea that is bound to be very interesting. Some crowds may not like it, but the original Spartacus also had female barrier. So in that regard, the House of Ashur is only expanding on that aspect. So far seemed to a complex, well-written character, a mixture of pride and guilt and the longing for freedom. I see in her the same fire as the bringer of rain himself. Others have called House of Ashur everything from glorious and action-packed to bolder and better than the original series. Reactions on social media have been much the same, with users praising the new series as incredible. Subscribe to Starz for OHO Amazing. You continue to have the best character and elastic world building in a highly stirred society. It brought back so many good memories of the jaw-dropping action and characterization of Spartacus Bravo. The first two episodes of Spartacus House of Ashur are streaming now on the Starz app. I look for the remaining 8 to drop every Friday until the season 1. In the early 2010s, Starz had a hit with the Spartacus franchise because of its copious amount of blood and sex, but mostly because of its creative dialogue. This formula is back in a new series. When we were last saw Ashur's formula slave, gladiators and Memricus, a strong arm to be highest bidder. He was beheaded on Mount Viol. But Starz bring him back to life Spartacus. It does not matter his Starz show from Spartacus, House of Ashur, to Power to Outlander, the cable channel loves to blur the line between the and you get a new legacy series with the Starz franchise that is relentless chapter worthy of the original. The last time we saw Nick at Tarabay Ashur, the former keeper Syrian gladiator stand various henchman he was beheaded by Lucky Lawless. Now this may be hard to follow, as this is not prequel as a sequel, but an alternative imagining, a legacy prequel, or a mythological reboot. The audience gets a fan favorite characters back, seen as slightly new lens. Instead of a show's continuing to rub soldier with his fellow slave, now orders him back for the underworld fully held with his slightest lamp. See him to be realm of living, where he now runs the gladiator training school in the heart of Capua, the very place where he once made a name of himself. So think of this as a Roman, or hell when Whoopi Goldberg got back in the habit. Now Ashur is a brimming with money, influences and power. He enlists Cassius to help finance his project, knowing what it takes to be a victorious gladiator. He knows that he needs. He sees dollar sign when he finds there is so good in stealing role in project like Cabinet of Curiosities and it will come to Jerry. It's magnetic in the role, you can't take your eyes off her hair. Assured in high scores and wager wrapped Silver Fox as the head trainer. This becomes a significant plot point within the series. There is so much and violence in this Spartacus House of Ashur that you have to wonder if creator and showrunner Seven as DeKnight is getting his rocks off to narratives. However, it was embarrassed by Game of Thrones. However, the inspection here is that the entry has no grace between its carnal violence and Sophie's team. Frankly, it feels like it is one after the other. The series is not for the faint of heart. This is not an organ or bone that is not left on the sand-covered floor. The first two episodes will test how much gore the viewer can handle. Of course, this series starts with writing power dynamic. Almost every fantasy series has reached for George A.R.R. Martin. That being said, Spartacus House of Ashur is almost always entertaining. A soap that man and woman will both enjoy, which is why it is seriously worth watching. Even the Roman, theoretic, and Shakespeare-like become integral. The show is a cheap, quick shot of underline for fans of the genre, depending on the level of the sophistication you require in your entertainment. While the series lacks the narrative complexity and production design of its pair, Spartacus is one of my favorite action shows ever. So much so that it inspired one of my book series. So here it was returning for more was exciting news. But how it was returning was bizarre and kind of hilarious. The new show is Spartacus House of Ashur, focusing on a villainous character from the original series. What's right about that? Characters get spin-off series all the time. Right, well, in this case, Spartacus ended with Ashur getting beheaded. So how is this going to work exactly? The concept is just, okay, what if this did not happen? That's the long and short of it. This is just some alternate timeline because who cares why? Ashur is a great character, and Spartacus was a great series. So let's just bring him back and run with it. Here is the synopsis. Spartacus House of Ashur explores a what if scenario where Ashur survives the event and is rewarded with the gladiator school he once served. The series follows his rise to power as a dominus in the brutal world of the Roman gladiator, a part he takes with the help of fierce gladiatrix named Achilia. The show premieres on December 5 on Starz, but reviews are coming in. Those reviews have at present produced a 100% Rotten Tomato score for the show. I gotta say, not exactly what I was expecting. Don't get me wrong, I love the originals, but it is not exactly high growth, critics pleasing entertainment. But looking back to 2010-2013 when the original series aired its 4 seasons including one prequel season, the show wasn't scoring this high. We had Spartacus Blood and Sand Season 1 52%, Spartacus Gods of the Arena Season 2 73%, Spartacus Season 3 not enough reviews for a score, Spartacus War for the Dam Season 4 69%, Spartacus House of Ashur's Parallel Universe Season 5 I guess 100%. Granted there are not a ton of reviews in yet, but those that are effusive. Here's a rogersaber.com. It offers user narrative in a world where prequels and reboot threaten to stifle our originality. A spin-off series that not only honor the legacy of its predecessor, but one that attempts rival it. Variety. Overall, Spartacus House of Ashur is a dynamic follow-up to the previous chapter. A classic tale of rehabs and have won out in ancient Rome, where power means everything. DeKnight world is as enticing as ever, in making a woman who is scared both physically and emotionally. Creator, showrunners, executive producers Simon S. DeKnight and his writers have fleshed out a character who could have just been a plot into one that is a welcome addition. So not that many reviews, but these are major outlets streaming in, and they all love it. The 10 episode season while will arrive this Friday. December 5 on Stars and clarity, it's not one to be missed, even if you have to subscribe to Stars. If does not matter, the Stars show from Spartacus House of Ashur to power out under the cable channel loves to blur the line between action-packed and soapy prestige. Now infused blood and guts, melodrama with some sharp. It's been a long 12 years since the bloodiest, sexiest how on television last aired. 7 as DeKnight's Spartacus, loosely based on the historical gladiator turned rebel who came to be challenged Rome. Set itself apart for its realistically bloody, high-octane combat, open parade of the gender's inclusive sexuality, and provocative focus on the politics of the arena. Running for 4 seasons between 2010 and 2013, the series was a hit for Stars and has retained a strong reputation with fans ever since its final bow. Here we are, however, in the era of thinking daily about the Roman Empire. Also, I am told I am more of an empire head myself, and there is still one big question of fans' mind. How can Spartacus be respectfully brought back when the titular rebel has died? Simple and magical history altering reaction. With its premiere this week, Spartacus House of Ashur boldly moves the franchise forward with a fresh, unflinching series that mostly captures what made the original great. Spartacus House of Ashur began with one of the most substantial retcon in TV history. What if it shows had not been beheaded and instead survived to be the man who killed Spartacus and stopped the rebellion? In ancient Rome, full of magical and figures gods, anything is possible. Here, return course gladiators fate changes in the afterlife. Video shows not the man who delivered the final blow to the Spartacus and saved the Romans alive. For this his effort, Ashur is promoted to be dominus of his own house, navigating the political peril of Rome while reading the gladiators to incomplete in arena. Besides political positioning and betrayal, Ashur finds gladiatrix Agilia, controversially dropping her to lead his guard of gladiator in hope that a fierce, brave woman will win the crowd and elevate his fortune. Stakes only mount when Ashur draws the attention of none other than Julius Caesar himself. Spartacus' House of Ashur can't really be the anti-authoritarian series that it's a rebellious progenitor was, given that it's based around a man who, as of now, killed Spartacus. There nonetheless remains a slight in sequel, as Ashur seeks to claw his way upward in a Rome built for established families. Spartacus' House of Ashur is very much doing its own thing, but it's an entertaining one. Series lead Nick Tarabay gives complexity and a strong, charismatic presence in his return, as the titulous characters now commanding a gladiatorial pool instead of struggling to survive within one. While the story's political struggle for honor are capable balance against more action-heavy element. Within this show extensive assembles Danica Davis as Spartacus House of Ashur's only female gladiator, constantly based by fellow combatant who wish to see her downfall. The actresses deliver both the character's emotional complexity and her penchant for angry combat well. And Agilia only expands and grows as the show progresses, the lifeblood of the sequel series. However, is Graham McTavish as Corey's seasoned gladiator, turned trainer who becomes rapid into Ashur's ambitious, but finds emotional connection all his own. He is gracious and capable, but adds brilliant, subtle layer to the characters throughout. While the show primarily revolves around the show's political ambition and mechanisms, its core is who truly evolves as the story progresses, at least within the 5 episodes made available for review. Spartacus House of Ashur also boasts universally realistic blood and gore, not a strong fit for the more squeamish of TV reviewer, and anyone looking for intense combat should be satisfied. But a few technical elements, particularly early on, don't always work. One early training sequences include combat that feels a little too slow to be authentic, even for training, resulting in fight that feels more telegraphed and closer to stage combat than it would. It would also be desirable for the series to offer a few more open-air scenes to give a sense of Rome's scale. Since the season, Spartacus House of Ashur essentially pulls off the miraculous leaning on the mythological extravagance of ancient Roman belief to rewrite history and gives a character a new lease on life. It's clever and it works outside of the event that enabled premises. The series otherwise retained a gritty, real political realism that the original show often revolved around. Spartacus House of Ashur also largely returned the original series' deep showcases of ancient Romanity, parodying the empire's bonafide culture alongside unflinching orgy of sex and violence. Tarabay's a strong lead. Davis grows into her role quite well and excels while the show essentially follows Ashur attempt to rise in Roman society. There is a room for rebellion to grow, leading to hope that his element of the original will come to the forefront in the future. In the meantime, Spartacus House of Ashur recaptures much of what the original series did and proves this franchise has not lost a beat in its 12 years. 15 years after the debut of Starz hit drama, Spartacus Blood and Sand. Creator 7's DeKnight is returning to the ancient Roman Republic to rewrite history within the sequel series. In the original show and its subsequent chapters, Spartacus, by anti-frightful reports, ultimately dead, and later by Lamb, killed traitor Ashur, on Mount in House of Ashur. The former gladiators gets an alternative ending, one in which the arrogant Syrian live. Instead of being killed, Ashur takes Spartacus' life and is consequently rewarded for his trickery by Roman Empire. A spectacular tale draped in violence and eroticism. This new series follows a man despite the 10 episodic first season's critics received 5-star review. Opens in a dream sequences. Instead of meeting his nemesis, Ashur turns against Spartacus to aid a Roman soldier for his effort, which is include the company of his body slaves Hilara and Mercia, as well as Chorus, the doctors in charge of training his gladiator. He is still the laughing stock among the elite, who accuse him of stabbing Spartacus in back later crowd. There is a much to be gained for all under the banner of the house of Ashur, should it actually extend. Ashur's gladiators, especially the ambitious Dargon and Chorus, are eager to bask in his notoriety. Riches and freedoms our champion status would bring them. Unfortunately, Ashur's idea to achieve this goal influenced everyone. When the recent champion is in the arena, Ashur and Chorus had to be dogs where the enslaved are held, looking for a potential new fighter. There Ashur finds himself distracted by a chained woman getting the best of God, mesmerized by her agility and fearsomeness. Ashur purchases her, renaming her Algelia, and forcing Chorus, much to his horror, to train her as a gladiatrix. It's a role that is neither mentally nor physically prepared for. Like his predecessors, Spartacus' House of Ashur is absolutely bursting with sex and violence. These themes are so embedded in the series that they function as plot points in their own right. The amount of sex and nudity depicted would undoubtedly leave the most liberal-minded viewer blushing. Inside and outside of the gladiators arena, DeKnight highlighted how brutal and volatile this world truly is. Forms slide through to be across skull and soldiers' human organ and guts are constantly on display here. However, a gruesome act at the end of the episode 2. Foreskin is sure to shock the season. Moreover, while the majority of the action center on street fighting and the arena, Spartacus' House of Ashur also peels back the trackery moves into the era's politics. Ashur is pleasantly thriving. Everyone standing in the Capua is and likely to change at any moment. Ashur desperately worked to win the favor of Center despite the Center's wife. Great decide for him. Yet his efforts are constantly undermined, especially amid the arrival of Julius Caesar. Our Spartacus House of Ashur is a dynamic follow-up to the previous chapter, a classic tale of the haves and have-nots in ancient Rome, where power means everything. DeKnight's world is as enticing as ever, by offering Ashur's this new life and echoing his story of Achilles. The series brings two very unlikely figures to the forefront, showcasing the extreme to which they go to preserve their position. It also highlights how viciously their adversaries will fight to ensure the traitor and gladiatrix demises. Aside from both being sword and sandal drama set in ancient Rome, 2000 Gladiators has nothing whatever to do with Spartacus the Starz series that aired 3 seasons from 2010 and 2013. But as I watched Spartacus House of Ashur, the new spin-off from the latter, my ears kept ringing with that signature line from the former. Are you not entertained? House of Ashur is nothing if not hell-bent on entertaining servings of sex and violence to make Game of Thrones look recent and enough backstabbing to power and entire. By the end of the 5 hours sent to the critics, I could only answer that question in the gate. Exhausted affirmative yes, I am entertained. That devotions to fun extend to its very premises. Spartacus had will know that Ashur. Definitively and gruesomely in the parent show's second season, and therefore has no business starring in his own sequel, which include your faithful reviewer. Will know none of this and don't really need to. House of Ashur is direct the fan favorite anyway, just because created 7 as DeKnight, the mind behind the original. The choice is justified in universes via laborious speech from guest star and Spartacus alum Lucy. Lawless that boils down to it in an alternate timeline. Don't worry about it. In this version of events, Ashur's a former slave and Gladiator was the one who killed the rebel Spartacus and was subsequently made master of his own house. Despite his newfound wealth and status, he is still disdained by an established nobility, who missed no opportunity to redeem the Syrian, always said with a sneer. of his lonely and foreign audition. As he sees it, he is best shot and climbing up. The latter is finding victory in the arena with his own ludus. The newest and most controversial acquisition, which is Achelia, the reigning first ever female gladiatrix. House of Ashur feels like a silly show, in a sense that it puts his lizard brain player front and center, without a shred of apology or self-seriousness inside. Its characters don't simply have sex, they throw extravagantly catered organ and get eaten out while catching up on the latest political cause. They don't kill Cleany when they can bag through skull and shear off body part, spilling enough blood to file the I know one settle for just sucking straight in the series Latin syntax article. Loss of course, but when they can scheme to have their enemies publicity, humiliated or straight up murdered. A more sober-minded drama might try to ground its universe in some authentically created version of the past or play up the gravitas of its most famous historical figure. House of Ashur gives us a Julius, yes, that one, whose bleached blonde locks and improbably joyous-lad jawline look more TikTok influencer stealing for a Beverly Hills and a spa than a girl's profile on ancient coin. It works because this is not the kind of show that needs you to buy that this version of Caesar is literally factually accurate. This is the kind of show that just wants you to get what a sub-worthy little shit he is. But House of a show surface level should not be mistaken for laziness or slowness. On the contrary, in a underrated by surprising mystery, storytelling its larger plot takes its mind, so that each show development feels organic and earned, rather than plopped in by screenwriter desperate for a cliffhanger. Does not become a worthy champion overnight, but earns her place by our grueling hour in the process, reminding us precisely how pushing her ordeal is. Ashur's mechanism failing it first mean. Is always written when it do beat fraud, since we understand how hard even his minor victorious are. Well dead, and because we have seen who exactly he is up against, Ashur played with a delicious bombast by Tarabay is by no means a good guy. Arrogant and self-centered, he will add reminders of his formerly low status but then turns around and threat his own slave, including loyal badmate Hilara, with gallows world populated by the likes of House of Ashur's tone remains in a clear, fully hedonic register as of now. Granted, none of these nonsense subplot have paid dividend yet. As I said, this series like to take it time. But they're promising that House of Ashur seem to be understand that if the non-FW player then draws us in first. Is a growing attachment to these characters and their life that will keep us on the hook. And while we wait, well, it also is you are never very far from an opportunity to do over your best impression of a Roman citizen circa. And rise up in your living room shouting for a sword, whirling letter to kill. It is one of the stories that introduces me to power of storytelling and should just know how televisions can accomplish. Up to that point, I was obsessed with network show, but my deep dive into the Spartacus was like riding a sports bike after years on a bicycle with training wheel. I circle back every couple of years for comfort, and there is always something to discover. I have probably rewatched it 5 times. The scale of the narrative romance score, action and language took over my entire being, and for a while I spoke in Spartacus. When Spartacus House of Ashur was announced, no one in the whole wide world was happier than I was. Now, after watching the 2 episode series premiere, I am largely impressed by what has been achieved, but is missing something important. One scholar shows up separate forward seeking the heat of power and positioned the perfect of the character. He lacked honor, morals, and respect. He was a murderer, thief, cheater, and rapist, worse than the enslavers of Rome. Seven as DeKnight's decision to base this show on a shore was a choice. The man has no redeeming quality, and even when the oracle brings him back to the alternate life, he has not changed. But Assure's moral bankruptness would not have been so evident if Spartacus and his people had not existed. They represented the absolute goodness that stand firm even in the face of great challenge. The preceding installment of this saga landed harder because they had a clear direction in mind, and slavery in all its form across this land. It was an easy message to get behind because slavery is the biggest sin in human history, and they are saying something for a species is capable of doing anything to each other and our environment. The righteous Kazaka Spartacus was willing to lay his life for his what house of assured like. In his place is blinding aspiration of a man loyal to nothing but coin and power. And it engages all note and shows finds a rhythm, not because Ashur is redeemable, but because his corruption is endlessly watchable. But for all his shortcomings, getting that coin is valid goal, especially with our characters like Ashur. We know there is a nothing beneath him. He will do anything for more coin and power. We last saw this burning desire to succeed in, but he had limit. Ashur's character is the love child of Spartacus' steadfast decision and unquenched thirst. Pulls a neat trick to bring the characters back to life. Afford him an opportunity in the world to experience. However, they don't give any justification for doing this. This is Ashur's presence in the afterlife, instead of the Christian's version, where something in the dead burns of eternity. You will live the best version of your life over and over. Is this way of exacting revenge of Ashur's part in destroying our life? The show does not say, and the silence is either genius or a fatal flaw. The House of Ashur's biggest faith in his ability to recapture this world without missing a beat. It really feels like we never left. It doesn't seem like 12 years have passed since Spartacus, the war of the damned. The nostalgia here started when we find ourselves in the House of Ashur. For me, the house of this houseless character is like nothing else in Rome, and seeing the ludus once again full of gladiators is exciting. Something are the same yet much has changed.